Guys, I think we can officially say the waiting mode is over on the Lupin side, because now we actually have clear information, and that is this. Lupin Part 4 is coming in fall 2026. So yes, the series is coming back, Omar Sy is coming back, and Netflix definitely has not pushed this project off into some corner and forgotten about it. On the contrary, they are still treating it like a very major brand. And the fact that Lupin is still seen as one of Netflix's biggest non-English language productions already makes that very clear. The good part is not just that the release window is now known. We also know that the new season has been in development for a long time already. So this is not one of those situations where they say, we announced it, but there is still nothing there yet. This is a season whose preparation started a while ago, whose filming has been done, and which has already moved into later stages. So we are really talking about a return that is getting closer, and I think that makes the excitement feel much more real. Now think back to the Part 3 ending. What did Assane do? He chose to give up his own freedom in order to protect his family, and he turned himself in. So when the new season begins, we are not going to have Lupin in the usual sense, relaxed and moving freely in the field. On the contrary, we are going to be watching an Assane who looks cornered, but with a character like Lupin, that is usually when he becomes the most dangerous. The moment he looks the weakest is usually the moment he is building his biggest plan. That is why I would not be surprised at all if the main backbone of the new season ends up being shaped around the prison side of the story. Of course, official sources are not coming out and telling us he will do this in episode 1, then this in episode 2. But all the signs suggest that Assane is going to keep controlling the game even from behind bars. In fact, maybe the real point of this season will not even be escaping. Maybe being inside is the most critical part of his plan. Isn't that exactly what Lupin is all about? Everyone thinks they are watching one thing, and then suddenly you realize he had staged that whole scene far in advance. And then, of course, there is the Pellegrini situation. Because one of the biggest things people got stuck on after the finale was exactly that. Is one of the biggest shadows over Assane's life going to rise again? In the new season, is that threat going to work from the inside or from the outside? I think there is a very strong chess match feeling here. Because one of the things Lupin does best is not just staying ahead of the police, but also finding himself face to face once again with the dark, unfinished business from his past. When we look at the cast side of things, it is also clear that the season is not going to be only about Assane. Omar Sy is obviously still at the center, but beyond him, there are plenty of important characters who are expected to return, or whose names have come up in different sources. Claire, Benjamin, Gedera, and the other important people in Assane's life will most likely still be part of the story. And that matters, because what makes Lupin strong is not just the main character's charisma, but the connections around him. No matter how big his plan is, it always comes back to his family, his past, and the people closest to him. The new names are a little interesting too, because some reports mention new actors joining the season, but it is still not clear exactly what kinds of characters they will be playing. And in a show like Lupin, when someone new arrives, you cannot just look at them as a new character. In this series, everyone is either part of the game or the one who ruins it. That is why I think the chances are very high that these new names will be used specifically to disrupt the balance Assane has created. Another thing that caught my attention is the shift on the creative side, because I think it matters that Omar Sy is involved in this not only as an actor, but from a stronger creative position as well. I am not saying that always leads to good results, but in this case, having the man who has carried this character for years helping shape the story more directly increases the chances of the show keeping its soul. Because one of the biggest problems with some continuation seasons is this. The show comes back, but it feels like it has lost a little of its own spirit. Here, I think they are trying to reduce that risk. And then there is the production scale of it all. Some information coming out from the industry says the new season has made serious progress in post-production. And what that really tells us is this. Netflix seems to have placed this in an important spot on its 2026 schedule. So once the trailer drops and the promotional campaign begins, I think we can expect this season to be pushed in a pretty major way. And honestly, with an internationally powerful series like Lupin, anything less would not make much sense. The leaked information from the set is not empty either. People are talking about bigger scenes in Paris, wider scale filming, and action sequences where Omar Sy once again looks incredibly charismatic. Now, of course, you cannot trust every leak 100%, but the overall picture is this. Part 4 may be preparing to play on a bigger visual scale. Lupin never felt like a small show to begin with, but this time, we might see more ambitious sequences on a citywide level, and Paris is already extremely important in this show. Because Lupin does not use the city as just a background. Sometimes Paris becomes an escape route, sometimes it becomes a stage for a performance, and sometimes it becomes one of Assane's masks. So it would not be surprising at all if the new season gives us more iconic locations, more attention-grabbing setups, and maybe even bigger public games. Assane loves being invisible inside a crowd, but at the same time, he also loves putting on a show right in the middle of that crowd. Another one of the biggest things that shapes the atmosphere of the series is the music side. From what composer Matthew Lamboli has described, we understand that Lupin's musical language very intentionally combines classical orchestration with modern textures, even with touches of hip-hop influence. I think that detail is incredibly valuable, because the show itself is doing exactly the same thing. It takes a classic French gentleman thief legend, brings it into the modern era, and presents it with a stylish identity. So the music here is not just something playing in the background, it is directly part of the show's character. That is why, when talking about the tone of Part 4, we also have to think about the music side of it. Part 3 had a more playful, more fun energy. But if Part 4 is really going to tell a darker, more trapped, and more personal story, then it would make perfect sense for the music to move toward a more tense and heavier atmosphere as well. And honestly, that kind of tone fits Lupin very well, because the show always had elegance. But underneath that elegance, there was also a very serious feeling of anger and loss. One of the most fun topics on the rumor side is, of course, the Sherlock Holmes connection. This is not some brand new leak, more like a long-discussed possibility that has even been hinted at in the past by the creative team. Now, whether something like that actually happens or not, we do not know. But when you think about Lupin's literary roots and its playful side, I would not be shocked at all if at some point we saw a smart meta move that nods toward the Sherlock universe. It would not even have to be a direct crossover. Maybe it is a character, maybe a file, maybe just a brilliantly placed reference. But if something like that happens, the internet is going to go crazy. Another rumor making the rounds is this: could Part 4 be the final season? Now this is something we need to approach a little carefully, because there is no strong official statement saying that for certain. Yes, the season may feel bigger, it may close out certain major conflicts, and it may even carry a finale-like energy. But for now, I think it is way too early to say, this is where Lupin ends. Netflix loves this brand, the audience loves this character, and Omar Sy still seems very committed to the role. So completely closing that door does not feel very logical to me. What I am really paying attention to here is this. There is a very high chance that Lupin is going to turn into a harsher psychological struggle in the new season, because in the earlier parts, Assane usually had room to move. He was escaping, getting in, getting out, changing identities, and manipulating people. But if his space becomes tighter this time, then the mental side of the character is going to have to stand out even more. And I think that is exactly what makes Lupin so exciting. It is not his fist that is dangerous, it is his plan. At the same time, I also think his bond with his family is once again going to be extremely critical. Because behind all of Assane's biggest decisions, it always comes back to the same thing: his desire to protect the people he loves. So in Part 4, I think we may not only get big plans, police games, and enemy confrontations, but also more emotional and more personal scenes. That was already one of the things that separated Lupin from many other crime shows. He is not just clever, he is also a character carrying real emotional weight. I am expecting a season where everything feels a little bigger, but also a little darker. Bigger because the brand is bigger now, the expectations are bigger, and the level of attention this season is getting is bigger. Darker because the story is likely going to open with Assane not as a legend moving freely, but as someone trapped inside the very sacrifice he chose to make. And if those two things come together, Part 4 could end up being very strong. It would be entertaining to watch, but it would also feel more intense on a character level. And I think the best part is this: we have both clear official information and also rumors, theories, and leaks that are actually worth talking about. And that is exactly what makes Lupin Part 4 such a good topic for a video, because we are not just talking about it because the release date has been revealed. We are also talking about things like, where is the story going? Who is coming back? How is the tone changing? Is the show getting bigger? Is the ending coming? Those are real discussion-worthy topics. So basically, this is the picture. Lupin is coming back. Assane is coming back. The game is being set up again, and this time everything looks more personal than ever. If the team builds this season the right way, Part 4 might not just be a good continuation season. It could end up being the biggest move the show has made so far. Because sometimes, what truly makes a character grow is not the moments when they win, but the moments when they look like they have already lost. And Assane Diop is exactly that kind of character. So yeah, I am already really curious. Do you think Assane is actually going to be trying to get out of prison in Part 4? Or is there a much bigger plan behind this surrender again? And what do you think about the Pellegrini situation? Who do you think the real threat is going to be in the new season? Be sure to write it in the comments. If you are not subscribed, do not forget to subscribe and like the video. See you in the next video.